Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Magic Lesson number 45, Making It Happen. Due to a few different recent emails regarding this subject, I wanted to clarify again a point about magical practice that is one of the 3 keys of magic. It's a point that I've gone over before in these humble little YouTube podcasts, and that is namely that in order for magic to work, you have to release it. That's how you make it happen. You have to let go of it, stop thinking about it. It's a point that seems to be confusing to some, not usually to a formal occultists, anyone that belongs to a formal lodge or temple, a group or ceremonial circle of some kind, because people with that background tend to gather and then know, given the dynamic of their practice, that they do their magic with that group or in that space or at that time, and then return to their daily lives afterwards, right? They're not thinking about it all day. They're certainly not talking about it with others. So they kind of have that dynamic of doing magic and then releasing it already in play. But people who don't have that formal background or group or specific building that they return to, they seem to be confused by this idea that you have to actually forget about your magic in order for it to work for you. One person asked me in an email why they feel Luke's energy during ceremony moving through their body, but they keep waiting and waiting for their smaller spells to work in daily life, and they don't manifest. In a very real way, they've just answered their own question. It's because they're waiting for it to manifest, right? They can't seem to get that same coursing of energy or any kind of movement into their lesser intended occult workings. But they can during ceremony. So this is a hiccup a lot of practicing occultists run into, and it's because of your approach to what you're doing. In ritual, your approach is perfect, and you have that aggregate power, those powers to buoy you into that flow. But outside of ritual, your approach is all wrong because you haven't done it, you don't really know what you're doing. That's a very common problem that people have. In order to manifest intended spellcraft or sigilcraft or whatever kind of magic you're doing, exterior to, say, a full hermetic ceremony, for instance, you have to release your expectation of that manifestation that you're doing the spell to create. The energetic charge can't return to Kether, to source, to then be brought into completion. If you're holding onto it, if you're holding onto that energetic charge, it can't complete the circuit. In ceremony, that aspect doesn't matter as much because you're so caught up in the intended focus of authority and belief. The charge is moving through you from source. The circuit's being engaged with in this very overwhelmingly powerful, sometimes very direct way that can't be denied. Outside of full ceremony, you don't have ready access to that. And magic only works when you let go of your desire to have it fulfill your aim. Now, you're instinctively and naturally doing that in ceremony, but you're not instinctively or naturally doing it outside of ceremony. And that really isn't as counterintuitive as it sounds, that magic only works when you don't think about needing it or wanting it to work. This principle of how magic energies move into manifested reality is sometimes referred to as the law of least expectance or the law of least expectancy. And it absolutely is fundamental to anyone ever having their magic work. Having any kind of magic work, whether it's ritual, spell, sigil, ceremonial, any other form. It's forgetting the spell or the sigil or whatever was done that allows the universe to take it up from the mind, for lack of a more explicit explanation, which I can't give in public, and then to make it happen, right? So you have to release it from your mind. The universe can take it up, and then it's going to manifest it. If you dwell on it, if it's in your mind, if you expect it, think about it, return to it mentally, all of that, wondering every day when you wake up why the chaos sigil or ritual enchantment or candle spellcraft hasn't worked yet, that's why. It's because you are holding on to the energy of the magic you haven't released. You haven't released it. You're still waiting and expecting it. You have to have genuine confidence, authentic certainty in your craft for it to manifest. And that's something you're clearly very good at in ritual. And when you have that real authority, some might call it faith. I'd say that isn't required from what I've seen and done and felt myself, but it also doesn't hurt. So whatever you want to call it, confidence, authority, belief, faith, when you have that kind of a very real confidence in your occult practices, in your magical workings, it should be the simplest thing in the world to do a spell and walk away and never think about it again, because you already know it will happen. And so now it doesn't matter. There's nothing to think about or be anxious about or wait on. It's already going to happen. It's already happening. It's already happened. That's what set it and forget it means. You hear that a lot, right? And among occultists, people in the know, set it and forget it. Set your spell, sigil, intent, and then forget about it entirely. It will manifest. It is will. You don't have to think about it. If you can't forget about it or stop worrying about it, expecting it, wanting it, all of that, then it's not going to happen. Because the magic that's really being done when you're feeling and behaving in that way is you're telling the reality you're making to make you wait. Because that's the reality you're really making. That's how you're behaving. That's how you're thinking. If you're expecting something, the energy you tried and failed to intentfully focus is going to fulfill your true intention. So it's actually not failing at all. What it's doing is it's giving you your actual authentic, genuine want, which is to hit the pause button on everything and everyone around you so that you're waiting and expectation can be fulfilled, can be reinforced, because that is what you're doing. That's what you're actually willing. This is why it's difficult for the average occultist to do things like win the lotto with magic. Yes, you can. The average occultist cannot, because a game of chance with a probable outcome that's very important to the person doing that spell, right? It's very emotionally and consciously tied to that outcome. That's going to be almost impossible to forget about or not care about or not think about. For most people, even most occultists, removing themselves dynamically and mentally and emotionally from that spell after it's been done is going to be very, very difficult. That's not that it's impossible. I know people who can, but it is very difficult, and that's why. It makes sense, doesn't it? It's something that you're so involved in. It's going to be very hard to put it out of your mind. And if you can't put it out of your mind, you're not going to complete that energetic circuit. Magic will not happen for you if you're expecting it to happen or if you're thinking about it. I keep hammering on this point, but it's the sentences in these emails, right, where people are telling me that they're waiting and waiting for their spell to work. That's exactly what you're doing wrong. Expectation manifests the scenario of expecting. That means it's not happening yet. Releasing expectation manifests the scenario of providing, because you're no longer needing the energy around you to create a reality that allows for your expectation to persist. It is very common sense once you can kind of comprehend this idea. It's really more of a fundamental principle of how energy moves. When you do an Enochian ceremonial ritual, like I do, or whenever you cast a circle, the majority of people, whether Wiccan or Druid, we all cast circles. It's authority and confidence that you broadcast internally and externally, right? And it focuses your intent into a manifestation of Luke's energy. Now, most occultists are pretty good about that. They understand that believing in what they're doing is what allows it to happen. And then it's a very self-reinforcing system for them to contact that energy and then feel it and use it, because you only have to feel it once to know the reality of it. So most don't trip up there. The sticking point seems to be when some of those same individuals don't place as much priority and focus on then forgetting about the magic they've done. Because it really isn't enough to just use confidence and authority or the forgetting. You have to be able to do both. You have to be able to believe, be completely dynamically involved in it, and then step away and not dwell on it at all. Just walk away and not consciously think about all of that power, intense emotion, or the outcome of what you've set into creation. This is why the majority of occultists who pick up their craft from wandering into a new age shop of some kind or a so-called magic store can't actually do the magic they spend money acquiring ritual ingredients or tools to do. People buy some uncrossing oil or a road opener candle, take it home. They aren't given any background, right? I've seen people even offer to do luck spells for $5 in some of these stores. It's nonsense, right? So let's say they buy this uncrossing oil, road opener candle, take it home, anoint some things, light the candle, and then they think over and over, why isn't my spell to get a new job working? Or why hasn't the time for my vacation to Paris suddenly presented itself? Why isn't my boss just giving me a free vacation? It's because a candle is just a candle. If you, the real tool of magic, can't use magic or don't know how to use that candle, that tool, if you're thinking about a spell after you've done it, talking about it, telling other people about it, complaining about it, waiting for it, then you do not know how to use that candle. You do not know how to use magic. Buying stuff and randomly doing what you're told with it by whoever sold it to you and then waiting for a Ferrari to appear in your garage isn't occultism. Genuine occultism can make a Ferrari appear in your garage, but you are not going to get there by going about this the way you're going about it. You can create anything with magic. The most seemingly difficult things become the simplest things in the world to accomplish. But you aren't doing real magic, so it isn't going to happen. How many people have I watched do a ritual or sigil or spell or whatever? People who have no idea that I am a very trained, long-time practicing occultist, right? Because I don't talk about my magic in my daily life. So I'll watch them do this and then, of course, talk about it. And then they think about it relentlessly and endlessly after they've done it. Oh, I did my money magic last week. It's going to manifest. My money's coming. Oh, I did a clearing on my house. Those pesky negative energies are going to go away. Have they gone away? I wonder if that spell's worked yet. Has it worked yet? It will work, though. It's going to happen. Let me tell you about how I did this spell. Let me tell you about why I know it will work eventually. Or I did chaos sigilling to be healthier. Let me tell you all about it. Here's what the symbol looks like. It took me 20 minutes to draw. I wonder if it's working yet. Have I lost weight? Have I lost enough weight? Am I putting on muscle? I wonder if I'm eating healthier. Is this sigil working? Maybe I didn't write it correctly. It will eventually. I'm waiting for it to work. See, this endless just dialogue that people get into about their magic. You get the idea. You can see how counterintuitive and useless all of that is. You can see it in the sentences they use to talk about it. If you're waiting, it can't happen. If you're telling me about it, you're mucking up your energy in a million ways and involving me in your magic in an uncontrolled way. So it's not going to happen correctly. If you're having anxiety about it because it hasn't happened yet, it isn't going to happen. None of that is genuine magic. The key to a good banishing, do the banishing, know it's worked, and you never think about it again. That is the way all trained occultists do banishing. We don't sit there and dwell on whether or not a negative energy is hanging around after we've gotten rid of it. It's just the most bizarre thing in the world to see people struggle with this. If you want money magic to function, do the spell work. And then you don't even notice when the check arrives. Why would you? See, that's a real Magi's response to their own magic, right? They do money magic, they forget entirely about it, don't even notice when the check comes in the mail that they weren't expecting. Because we're not thinking about it. I'm trying to really convey this sense of this isn't a judgmental thing. It just has to do with how you approach, how you work with these energies. If you've set a sigil, say to become healthier, like I was saying, it absolutely is not ever going to work until your full conscious mind forgets entirely what that symbol meant when you drew it. That's why when I talked about sigil magic, I tell people to make a handful of them at a time, especially when they're new to this. That way you can mix them all up, and hopefully that helps you to forget at least which meant which. That's very helpful, right? But that is how sigils work. That's how the subconscious mind works. You cannot implement magic or access the subconscious by being conscious of it. That's what's really counterintuitive. That's the misnomer, the ideologue that really doesn't make any rational sense. You cannot get into your subconscious mind and make it do things for you by thinking about it. You cannot enter the flow of magic and get it to fulfill specific manifestations by forcing it to. That sigil will work when you forget you made it and stop caring about having done it, when you have no idea what it means. You'll be too busy feeling great about yourself, hiking in the woods with friends, right, in the beauty of nature, or doing whatever. You're going to be doing that, living your life, and have no room at all to think about the sigil that you made to become healthier. That is how the sigil works. It's working. You just don't know it's working because, one, you're not thinking about it, so how would you? And two, it is fundamentally changing your reality, your context of existence in a way that you can't just see this instantaneous thing. It is going to happen many times if you do it well instantaneously, but you're not going to perceive it that way. That's how magic works. It fulfills the goal without you trying to reach the goal. It fulfills it possibly even against your own will. If you're trying, you aren't doing. I think that's Yoda. Right? There is no try, there's only do and do not, something like that. Same idea, same principle. The subconscious and magic, magical energies, will do without you ever trying. But it cannot do if you're too busy gunking up the system with all your constant conscious anxiety and trying and waiting for it to work. Magic will never happen if you're thinking about it. It doesn't matter if you're thinking about it in a good or a bad way either. This is something I've heard before from people, right? Like, oh, it's going to happen. I can't wait. Yay. My magic always works even though I think about it because I think about it so optimistically. No, it doesn't matter. You're still thinking about it, so it will not work. It doesn't matter if you're optimistic or pessimistic, if you're happy or sad about it. If you're thinking about it, which I know you are, if you're talking to me about it, then it isn't going to work. And you know how I know it hasn't worked yet? You're still telling me about it. If it had already worked, you wouldn't be telling me about it. It would be a thing that had already happened, that you had already accomplished or done. You have to have your mind off of it completely. When your mind is off of your magic completely, then it's going to work. You have to relax. This is another thing that I see with a lot of people. People become so caught up in what they perceive to be their occultism that they don't really live their best life, right? Just breathe. Do you. Do your thing. And when you do magic, when you're doing well-balanced magic, and you're a well-centered, grounded person, you should be fully able to do the most intense emotional ceremony or spell. And then, when it's done, walk away completely calm, completely free of it, with your mind completely clear of it, and just chill. We all know that things that matter most to us are hard not to dwell on. That's very common sense to recognize that the projects and goals we want most, or most want to get finished, or have come into fruition, that's going to be very difficult to remove your intention from, right? Those are going to be the things that are the hardest to set and forget about. And those are usually the things that we're doing magic about, right? But they're going to be more difficult to remove your mental involvement and emotional engagement with, right? Because you're going to care about that outcome very much. That outcome becomes the simplest thing in the world to achieve, though, when you can remove yourself from it. The most difficult things become very easy and very manifested when you can disengage your conscious mind from them and walk away and allow energy to move where and how it should. That includes as you intended with specific craft work or spell working. I hope this helps a bit to clarify what the law of least expectance is and to answer some of these most recent questions I've gotten in emails, and why setting and forgetting is such an important function of having your magic bear fruit, along with having you lead your best and most relaxed life. Until next time.